You really thought someone like you belonged at a wedding like this? Dressed like the help. You're lucky we didn't seat you with the staff. Stick around, because the girl they humiliated is about to steal the whole damn spotlight. I washed the dishes for the second night shift in a row while pictures of my sister going to the Maldives flooded my mother's Facebook. The scent of cheap oil clung to my apron. My hands were pruny and red from hours in warm water, and my feet ached from standing since the afternoon rush. Outside, the city lights bled into the wet pavement. A couple giggled under a shared umbrella, dodging puddles. Inside, the eatery buzzed with fluorescent fatigue, greasy counters, clinking utensils, the quiet hum of exhausted workers like me. It was nearing midnight, and I had just finished scraping congealed cheese off a tray when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. It was a text from Mom. "Your sister's been accepted into the Florence graduate program. Can you believe it? She really deserves this." No greeting. No question about how I was doing. Just, Jenna. Again. A small, bitter laugh escaped me. I wiped my hands on my apron and locked my phone. I used to think I would have the same opportunity as Jenna, but I didn't understand. In my family, not all children are born equal. Back in high school, I had earned a full-ride scholarship to a university in Chicago. I still remember the letter. Thick envelope. Official seal. My hands trembled as I opened it on the kitchen table. But before I could even show it to my mother, Jenna burst in crying about her rejection from a private college in California. The atmosphere shifted like a drop in barometric pressure. I never got to read my letter aloud. 2 weeks later, my mother sat me down and said, "You'll find another way, Nora. You're better on your own. Jenna needs more help than you do." And just like that, the scholarship was gone. Transferred in some way I still don't fully understand, to support Jenna's tuition. I was told it was for the good of the family. I was told I should be proud to help my sister. Tonight, I handed the last clean tray to the prep guy and stepped outside. Rain tapped against the garbage bins. An old man in a beige coat passed by, his hands trembling as he fumbled for coins. He paused, looked at me, and said, "You look like my niece." She used to work too hard, too. He pressed a folded $5 bill into my hand. I thanked him, too stunned to say more, and watched him disappear down the street. In my tiny rented room, the radiator groaned like an old man with arthritis. I hung my apron on the doorknob and collapsed onto the mattress. The sheets were thin. The air smelled faintly of mildew and lemon cleaning spray. On the nightstand was a photo frame. The two of us as kids, sitting cross-legged in the garden, grass stains on our jeans. We used to braid each other's hair, steal mangoes from the neighbor's tree. Somewhere along the way, I lost her. Or maybe she outgrew me. I used to dream of a wedding in a backyard strung with fairy lights. Simple. Just people who mattered. Jenna always talked about a marble-floored hall in Italy, a dress that needed its own room, a guest list longer than a novel. Even back then, it felt like we spoke different languages. I drifted off for a while until the ping of an incoming email woke me. The subject line read, "You're invited. Jenna Harper and Andrew Whitmore's wedding." It was from my mother's email address. No personal message. Just the link and a single line underneath. "Don't dress sloppily." My mouth went dry. I tapped the link. A sleek website loaded, gold trim, violin music playing softly in the background. Photos of Jenna and Andrew kissing in Tuscany, standing on a yacht, holding champagne flutes in outfits worth more than my yearly rent. I clicked on the guest seating tab. There it was. Table 26, labeled as additional distant relations. Not friends, not family. An afterthought. Just like the scholarship. Just like me. I closed the laptop slowly, but the glow of the screen still burned behind my eyes. Nora opens the digital invitation link, discovering that she is not on the main guest list, but in the additional distant table section. I work 2 jobs. They call it choosing hardship. Jenna stays home to take care of her skin. They call it working hard for herself. At the cafe, the steam machine hissed like a wounded animal while I scrubbed the counter for the third time that morning. My second job, this one, was easier on my back than the night shifts, but harder on my pride. I wiped the same spotless glass for the fifth time just to avoid looking like I had nothing to do. Customers trickled in, most of them glued to their phones, sipping overpriced lattes and typing nonsense into laptops that probably held half-written screenplays or startup pitches. No one knew that the most successful startup in this zip code didn't belong to any of them. It belonged to me. My name wasn't on the website. Not yet. I used a pseudonym for legal protection, for emotional distance, for survival. Max, my front-facing co-founder, believed I was just the operations girl with good instincts and a tireless work ethic. He once called me the glue, and I let him. Glue doesn't demand credit. It just holds everything together. That morning, we were preparing a pitch deck for a smart city sensor system, real-time traffic response grids, energy redistribution, the kind of stuff cities begged for and billionaires invested in. I had written the entire algorithm, diagrammed every potential issue, and created the testing prototype. Max just slapped on buzzwords and smiled during Zoom calls. He was good at that. "You going to the Henderson summit next week?" he asked casually, his eyes glued to his screen. I didn't look up. "Why?" He grinned. "There's talk that Mr. Henderson's looking to fund a new tech vision. If he notices someone, they're set for life." I nodded and turned back to my notes, biting back a smile. I'd already RSVP'd to that conference. Not as an attendee, but as a featured guest speaker. He didn't know. No one at the cafe did. Just like my family, they only saw what they expected to see. At noon, I stepped out and checked my phone. A group photo from Jenna's engagement brunch glared back at me from Mom's page. White dresses, champagne flutes, some flower arch spelling out, "She said yes." I hadn't been invited. Again. And they'd posted it knowing I would see. I used to ask my mom why I wasn't included. Once, years ago, I confronted her in the kitchen. "Why does Jenna get everything handed to her?" I asked. She didn't look up from the potatoes she was slicing. Women shouldn't be too ambitious. But what about the fact that she doesn't do anything and still gets everything? She looked at me, eyes flat and final. That's what makes her worthy. At the time, I didn't know what to say. Now, I just let those words pass over me like cold rain. They couldn't drown me anymore. After the shift, I went straight to the restaurant for my night job. The kitchen smelled of garlic and exhaustion. I chopped onions until my eyes watered. Not from the sting, but from the memory of the last family dinner I had attended. It had been years ago, before I left for college. My father had pulled me aside at the end of the night, gripping my shoulder too tightly. "You really think going into computers is something to brag about?" he hissed. "You should have been a nurse. That's a respectable job. You're embarrassing us." It wasn't the words. It was the way he said us, like I had walked out of the tribe and slammed the door behind me. He never raised his voice. But that night, his disappointment screamed louder than any shout. Back home, I peeled off my damp apron and opened my laptop. Unread emails piled up. One caught my eye. Jenna Harper and Andrew Whitmore wedding confirmation from Bridal Empress Events. I hesitated, then clicked. It was another form. Name, dietary restrictions, check one box. Will attend or regretfully decline. At the bottom, in smaller font, it read, attire, cocktail, no children, no video recording. Something in me twitched. I hadn't planned to go. I'd made peace with staying away. But now, a restlessness bloomed in my chest. I closed the tab without responding. My fingers lingered over the mouse, unsure. Maybe it was Henderson's summit. Maybe it was Max's ignorance. Maybe it was the quiet weight of never being seen. But something was beginning to shift. Nora receives an email from Jenna's wedding planner, asking to confirm whether she will attend. The last line adds, attire, cocktail, no children, no video recording. I was late. No one noticed. They didn't think I would come, nor did they think I was worth remembering. The hotel loomed like a palace pulled from some overpriced bridal magazine. Columns, white marble, a valet wearing gloves. I stepped out of the rideshare into a blur of flashbulbs and laughter. The concierge barely glanced at me, then did a double take and asked, "Catering?" I didn't answer. I just walked past him, black dress brushing my knees, heels clicking like a metronome on glass tile. Inside, it smelled like roses and champagne and money. Waiters floated like trained dancers, balancing flutes of rosé. A string quartet played something expensive and forgettable. Every surface gleamed as if polished with ambition. I followed the signs toward the ballroom and paused at the gold-plated door, heart drumming steady. I wasn't nervous, not in the way people expected. I was calibrating. They didn't see me walk in. Not my parents. Not Jenna. Not even the ushers, who were too busy laughing at something a bridesmaid said. The lighting was dim, romantic. I moved toward the guest list posted on a sleek screen, found my name buried in a list of extras, and located table 26. Distant guests. Additional. Disposable. The ballroom pulsed with energy. Jenna stood near the center, radiant in her designer gown, talking with a cluster of guests. Her laughter rang out like wind chimes. For a moment, I remembered when we used to giggle over cereal boxes, when we made up stories about getting married on the same day, in the same backyard. That girl was gone. My table was in the back, near the service entrance. Only one chair was occupied. A waiter had left his dinner half-eaten. The rest were empty. I sat down, the linen cool beneath my fingers. From where I was, everyone looked like moving silhouettes, like characters in a play I had once auditioned for, but was told I didn't fit the part. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced. "Please welcome the bride and groom." Applause thundered. Jenna and Andrew entered, glowing. She waved like royalty. The spotlight caught her tiara just so. I didn't clap. I didn't smile. I just watched. Dinner came and went. No one approached my table. The servers forgot me once, then brought the wrong dish. I said nothing. I wasn't hungry. My appetite had faded years ago, around the time my scholarship disappeared and my mother told me I was strong enough not to need help. Then came the speeches. Jenna's voice rang through the room like a polished melody. "I just want to thank the people who made this possible," she said. "Mom, Dad, you gave me everything. Every dream I have, you helped build. And to my amazing fiancé, Andrew, you showed me what it means to be chosen." Chosen. That word hit harder than the rest. I used to think I came tonight to make peace with it all. To watch, one last time, before I moved forward without looking back. But sitting there, under the glowing chandeliers, at a table meant for ghosts, I realized I hadn't come for closure. I came for confirmation. That I had always been invisible to them. And then, everything shifted. A ripple moved through the room. Chairs scraped softly. Conversations hushed. I turned and saw him. Mr. Henderson. He wasn't part of the wedding, wasn't listed on the guest board. He was walking directly toward me, his silver hair like a blade in the low light. He smiled, extended his hand. "Nora Harper," he said, loud enough for every head to turn. I didn't expect to meet the young CEO of the year here. Silence fell like a curtain. Wine glasses froze midair. One of the violinists let their bow slide off the string. Jenna's mouth dropped open. And across the room, my mother dropped her glass of wine. No one said anything. But I could hear the sound of a glass breaking, my mother gasping for breath. Jenna looked at me like I had ruined her wedding day. The air in the ballroom shifted, like someone had opened a window in a sealed cathedral, letting in something cold, fresh, undeniable. My heels clicked against the marble as I stood slowly, pulse steady despite the spotlight. My black dress, simple and elegant, now looked like a deliberate contrast against Jenna's glittering white gown. It wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a reckoning. Mr. Henderson's handshake still lingered on my palm, warm and real. He hadn't let go too quickly. He hadn't hesitated. "Nora Harper," he said again, nodding to the guests now craning their necks. "This young woman is the mind behind the software we're deploying in the city's infrastructure overhaul? The Aegis Grid project? That's hers." Whispers erupted. Not polite, dismissive ones. Real whispers. Urgent. Curious. My mother's eyes darted left and right, tracking the sounds like threats. "Who?" I thought she was the sister. "Wait, is she the coder from that article?" I saw her name at the summit program. A small woman in a red dress stepped forward from near the bar, holding her phone. "I wrote a piece about her last week," she whispered to her friend. "They said she was anonymous, but I recognize her. It's her." Jenna stumbled forward a step, clutching the edge of her veil like it was the only thing anchoring her to this reality. "So," she began, voice high-pitched, fragile. "So you're still doing engineering stuff?" I turned to face her. The room held its breath. "Not an engineer anymore," I said. Calm, clear, unapologetic. "I run it." The silence cracked, then shattered. It rippled through the room like an aftershock. The whispering turned into talking. Phones lit up. Someone pointed at me. Another started typing. Behind me, the string quartet faltered, the violins dragging into an uneasy trill before fading altogether. My father remained frozen in place, lips pursed. My mother's hand hovered over her necklace, fingers trembling. She leaned toward me, voice sharp but soft enough that only I heard it. "I didn't tell you to say that." I met her eyes, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one blinking away tears. "You didn't need to," I said. She looked around, realizing too late that the eyes of the room were no longer on Jenna's tiara, but on me. Then Jenna let out a laugh, a tight, brittle thing. "Well, of course. I mean, you always liked your little tech hobbies, right?" She turned to the guests as if to pull them back into her orbit. "She used to stay up all night in the basement with wires and things. We called her our little tinkerer." I could feel the words bounce off me, meaningless. The kind of line that might have worked 5 years ago, before I had offices in 2 states and state contracts worth millions. Mr. Henderson smiled faintly. "Not a tinkerer anymore, Miss Harper. She built the adaptive neural node architecture that's making our city the most responsive in the country. We don't call that tinkering." That did it. The cameras that had been following Jenna and Andrew all evening slowly tilted. One cameraman turned to the wedding planner and whispered something. The planner hesitated. "Are we going to record that?" the cameraman asked, his voice low but pointed. "She's an important character." Jenna paled. Someone near the DJ booth muttered, "I didn't even know she had a sister." Another replied, "Apparently the sister is the one funding half the state's smart traffic systems." And then there was quiet again. Not heavy, not awkward. Curious, reverent. Like the room had just realized it had been misled about the protagonist of the story. I stood there, letting it all wash over me. The lights, the whispers, the camera's lens now subtly shifting toward me. I didn't ask for this spotlight. But I wasn't stepping out of it either. My mother held my hand in front of others for the first time in her life. But I felt like she was dragging me back into a trap I was all too familiar with. We stood in a private lounge just behind the main ballroom. It smelled faintly of perfume and lemon-scented polish, with soft lighting that tried too hard to be calming. The party outside was on pause. Someone said they needed time to reset the lights for the dance floor. But I knew better. It was time to reset the narrative. She hadn't said anything as she led me into the room. Just that strange, tight-lipped smile, like a curtain pulled across a broken window. Now, standing beneath a portrait of someone else's ancestors, she said it. "I underestimated you." It came out too clean, too rehearsed, as if she'd tried it on in front of a mirror, checking for the right amount of humility. I didn't respond. I let the silence bloom between us like a bruise. "I should have given you more credit," she added, "but the past, we can't change that." What matters is now. I leaned against the side table, arms crossed. Now? She adjusted a pearl earring. Now you've become someone people look up to, someone who made it. I nodded slowly. And that's why we're talking. She blinked. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? I asked softly. That after years of watching you rewrite the family story without me in it, I'm suddenly worth a footnote? Or maybe a caption? Her voice softened, but her eyes remained sharp. Did you come here to teach us a lesson? I looked straight at her. I came here to remind myself that I don't need lessons from anyone anymore. That stopped her. Just for a beat. She stepped closer. Look, Nora, people saw what happened. They're talking. But if we show them we're united, it can change everything. For all of us. She pulled out her phone. The screen glowed in the dim room. We could take a photo together. I could write something. Thankful. A proud mother's post. A breath caught in my chest. Not surprise, but recognition. The same old playbook. Polished words. Picture-perfect lies. I stepped back. I'm still acting. She frowned. What do you mean? I'm playing along, I said. For now. That doesn't mean I've forgotten the script. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Then the door opened, just a little, and Jenna appeared in the doorway. Her dress was wrinkled now at the edges, hair slightly loosened, lipstick faded. Her perfect night cracking at the seams. You're trying to steal my wedding, she said, voice sharp, brittle. I didn't move. No need to steal something that doesn't belong to you. She froze. Whatever fire she had flickered out in a blink. She looked between me and Mom, hoping one of us would throw her a lifeline. None came. My mother let go of my hand, like it burned her now. You've made your point, she said, loudly. Then, before I could leave, before I could retreat into silence again, another voice entered the room. It was my father. He walked in slowly, as if gravity had just remembered he existed. He had always been the quieter one, the shadow to my mother's spotlight. I hadn't expected him to speak. I hadn't expected him to notice. But he did. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Like he was seeing a puzzle he'd dismissed years ago now solving itself in front of him. You did something, he said quietly, almost in awe, that no one else could believe. And for once, I didn't flinch. Because for the first time in my life, someone in that family had. I left the party early. No one held me back. But this time, it wasn't because I was forgotten. It was because I left them behind. The doors of the ballroom closed softly behind me. The laughter inside had resumed, but it felt tinny, hollow, like a music box whose tune was winding down. The air outside was brisk, the kind of chill that woke you up, reminded you that your body had carried you through another day. I wrapped my coat around my shoulders, the fabric stiffer than I remembered. Maybe because I wore it differently now. Maybe because I carried myself differently. There were no tears, no lingering stare back at the hotel. Just the steady click of my heels across the pavement, like punctuation marks on the final page of a book. A valet looked up and did a small double take, then nodded respectfully. He didn't ask if I needed my car. He simply stepped aside. That was new. In the lobby, 2 guests stood by the floral arrangement, their voices dropping as I passed. I recognized one, Aunt Lorraine's friend who used to correct my posture at family dinners. Her eyes widened slightly. Miss Harper? She said with a soft nod. Beautiful evening. Beautiful, I agreed. A young waiter lingered by the doors, his tray now empty. He stepped forward, hesitated, then said in a near whisper, You're my role model. I paused, looked at him fully. Thank you, I said. Don't let anyone write your story before you get a chance to. His eyes shimmered. Then I walked out into the night. The drive back to the office was quiet. Max texted me 3 times, none of which I read. The city was alive but respectful. like it knew I needed a moment to breathe without being reminded of who I had just become in that ballroom. When I arrived, the office windows were glowing. From the outside, our floor looked like a ship above water, gliding through the dark. The elevator ride was quick, but in that moment it felt ceremonial, like a reset. The doors opened. Did the CEO just attack the world out there? Max grinned, arms crossed, leaning on the reception desk. Laughter broke out behind him. Confetti, not much, just enough to make me smile, fluttered down. Someone had ordered pizza. Someone else had brought champagne. I stepped in fully, exhaled. The space smelled like hope and printer ink, the kind of combination only a startup that survived could ever know. My team, their tired, grinning faces, looked like a different kind of family. One that hadn't been assigned to me, but one I had built. Max walked beside me toward my desk. "You okay?" I nodded. Better than okay. As I sat, my phone vibrated. An email notification lit up the screen. Subject: long-term cooperation. Henderson Tech Fund from r.henderson@htfund.org. Message: I believe in people who can rise without a stage. I stared at it for a second longer than I needed to. Not because I was unsure, but because it was rare. So rare to feel seen and not feel exposed. I put the phone down. There were no dramatic words, no grand declarations, just a warm hum in my chest, the kind you get when the right door opens after years of pushing against the wrong ones. Max raised a brow. "So?" I stood slowly, adjusted my coat, and looked around the room at the people who hadn't needed a wedding or a handshake to see me. I didn't need to be seen. I see myself. And with that, I said the only words that mattered. I'm back. After years of being overlooked and underestimated, Nora's quiet strength finally took the spotlight. What began as a life of forced sacrifice and silent endurance ended not in loud confrontation, but in a single seismic shift, when truth found its stage and injustice lost its voice. Her rise wasn't built on revenge, but on resilience. Not on bitterness, but brilliance. Like a cracked foundation that finally gave way under the weight of lies, the Harper family's facade shattered. And in its place, Nora stood alone, unshaken. This story reminds us that justice often moves slowly, but its arrival is undeniable. The greatest power sometimes lies not in fighting to be seen, but in becoming someone who no longer needs to be acknowledged to feel whole. When those who once ignored you must look up just to meet your gaze, that's not just vindication. It's evolution. As one man whispered to Nora, "You rose without a stage." And that is what terrifies those who thought they'd buried you. So if you've ever been made to feel invisible, insignificant, or second best, remember this. Silence can hide injustice, but it cannot protect it forever. Like a quiet storm gathering strength, your truth is waiting to be heard. One step, one moment of courage can change the course of a life written by someone else. And maybe, just maybe, standing up today means you'll never again have to bow to injustice tomorrow. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for more. Drop a 1 in the comments if you've ever felt like Nora, and are ready to write your own end.